Good morning, everybody. This is David McLeod calling or contacting you from Belmont, California. And I realize that some of you may not be in the morning. You may be afternoon, you may be evening, you may be even nighttime for all I know. Wherever you're joining us from, welcome. And thank you for joining us. It's your presence that really makes it worthwhile for us to be doing this. And I just want to remind you that this is Life Matters TV. This is episode 43. And today we're going to be talking about what I like to think of as holistic living. We're calling this episode Life Matters 360. And before I get too much into that, I want to introduce and welcome my brother and co-host, Tommy Stoffel. Welcome, Tommy.
Hey, David, thank you. Welcome, everybody, to Life Matters TV. And yes, good day to all. So today we're going to talk about, as David mentioned, the holistic lifestyle. And other ways of putting that is kind of the whole person concept of who you are. So hence the name 360. You think about 360 as a full circle, and we're going to look at the aspects of ourselves as human beings, all aspects of ourselves. Mm-hmm. So what I'd like to do is read off a quote that came out in the information and in the invitation. And this one comes from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and my daily day timer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it says, everyone is a house with 4 rooms: the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual. It says, unless we go into every room every day, even if only to keep it aired, we are not a complete person. So again, you know, how do we be a well-rounded person? How do we make sure that we're tapping into each of those 4 rooms every day? The physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And so we're just going to open it up with that and talk about each of those rooms and what we can maybe do to make sure we're honoring all of us every day.
Yeah, you know, I refer to 4 principal archetypal energies that we all seem to carry within us. And those energies are the lover, the warrior, the magician, and the sovereign. And the lover corresponds directly with your emotional aspect. The warrior corresponds directly with the physical. The magician corresponds with the mental, and the sovereign corresponds with the spiritual. These are really beautiful and powerful archetypal energies that we all have access to. But there are 2 additional energies that I think we need to address as well, and those are the masculine and the feminine, because every one of those energies has an embodiment in both the masculine and the feminine. And if we're to be a complete person, then we have to acknowledge and address the masculine and feminine within us as well. So I think, you know, this 4 rooms is really important, but those 4 rooms are contained within a yin-yang house. And the yin and the yang are the masculine and the feminine. So that's my little metaphor addition for today.
Thanks, David. David, do me one more favor and say those 4, maybe type them in, the 4 archetypes again. You got lover, warrior, magician, sovereign. I will type those in right now while you're talking. Yeah, and I'm just correlating them to how I have things numbered here of physical, which is the warrior, emotional is the lover, and the magician is the mental. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
All sovereign.
Right, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for setting that context, because it always helps me too to have kind of some visuals or some story or some imagery to go along with these concepts, because otherwise they get a little too woo-woo. And so let's talk about it a little bit, and we will embody the whole yin-yang, male-female aspect of this as well. But because I know, you know, when we wake up in the morning, probably we're doing something, you know, maybe in our lives to do something physical, whether it's eating well or exercising or brushing our teeth. So from an aspect of you know, paying attention to the 4 areas, probably physical is one that we actually, you know, pay more attention to. Would you think that would be the case in general?
Oh yeah, I think that's very true, and I think particularly if you look at mainstream media and advertising and all that stuff, they tend to focus on the physical almost exclusively, and it's to our own detriment if we don't pay attention to these other pieces. I know for myself, just thinking about my life, and how I was so, I would say, well, what's the right word? I was unskilled, let's say, at dealing with my emotional issues. I had learned how to shut everything down. I kept it inside myself, and then it would escape sideways and come out as dangerous anger that could hurt people because I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't exercising that part of my life. Now, the mental, I was exercising. I was going to school. I was learning things. I was taking education and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say the mental and the physical are two areas that we probably focus on to the greatest extent. And, of course, there are people who have a very, very rich and powerful spiritual life too, but I think in general that's not a normal thing. I think we're moving more and more in that direction, and I'm happy to see that. And I think what you and I are doing here helps people move in that direction as well. But I think the physical and the mental, physical number one, mental number two, seem to be the ones that we focus on the most.
Yeah, in my mind, and what I drew on a piece of paper here that I'm not going to show you because it's so horribly drawn. So I drew a circle, and I started thinking of a pie chart, and I'm starting filling in, and not going with the yin yang aspect of it yet, but the four kind of components. And I think the ultimate goal would be to get to a place where those four pieces of the pie are equal in size. That you're well-rounded enough, 360 around the circle.
Yep, exactly.
You've got 90 degrees of coverage for each of the major areas. Right now, I would challenge people and ask you, not challenge, but just do it for yourself. Draw on a piece of paper where you're sitting right now and draw a circle and fill in the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects that you pay attention to just in a day. Wake up in the morning, go to sleep at night. How much energy and effort and focus do you put on each of those areas? And I'm sure it's going to come out that your different degrees of balance, but overall, if we did this on an average, I'm sure it's going to point to physical, the largest piece, mental, the next biggest piece, and then emotional and spiritual, some shades of lesser, attention.
I think, Tommy, just before you go on, I think a great question to ask inside each of those little sectors of the pie, I would ask myself, what's my level of fulfillment or satisfaction in that area? Not necessarily how much time am I spending on it, because it may be that I don't need to spend a lot of time in a certain area in order to feel fully satisfied and fulfilled. And then the second question I would ask is, how is my level of fulfillment contributing to my life outside of myself? How is it helping me to engage with other people and that sort of thing? Is it helping me to stay in line with my purpose and with my mission? Those are two questions that I would really insist on asking myself in each of those areas.
Brilliant, David. And I want to bring out a couple of points that you said there. It's not a matter of how much time you spend on something, because if you meditate, if you do any practice like that, 15 minutes of solid meditation can carry you spiritually through a whole day. So it's not like we, of our 12 hours, let's just say 12 hours of waking time or 16 hours of waking time, doesn't mean we have to spend 4 hours in spiritual and 4 hours in physical and 4 hours in mental. That's not necessary. So you'll come to your own balance, but we want to make sure that you're getting your daily recommended dose, your daily recommended allowance of each of these four areas. And something else that you said there, David, of your level of fulfillment. What popped into my mind is, if you're going to make this chart for yourself, and I'm going to start coloring it, maybe, or putting numbers in it, that this area of my life is maybe green. I go to the gym, I eat well, I brush my teeth, I floss, whatever, and I'm pretty comfortable with my physical aspects. So I'm going to color that one green. But some of these other areas, maybe, I could use some improvement in, or need some more focus in. And right now, this one's yellow. I could do a little more, but I'm doing something. Maybe this other area, you know what? I haven't paid any attention to that one. And that's maybe why I'm having all these struggles in life, or why, I keep getting whacked upside the head. Maybe make that one red for now, and then that flags it as an area that you want to work on. Yeah. So those kind of things were popping in as you were talking. And I've got, again, yard maintenance guys outside. I'm going to have to get soundproofing in the walls, but hopefully you can't hear too much of that.
Well, I'm looking at, eventually we're going to be in a studio that's soundproofed, and people are going to help us, and they're going to be directing the people who can help us move in that direction. They're going to be coming to help us with that. So for now, we have disturbances outside, and it's okay. But what I wanted to say is, it's quite conceivable. In fact, it's probably a certainty that there are interactions between these different components. So, for example, if I have some emotional issues and I've got some judgments that I'm maybe not showing up very well, or that I don't have a high opinion of myself or something, then it's very likely going to show up in my physical world by eating junk food, by not taking good care of myself, by saying, oh, to hell with brushing my teeth tonight, I'm just going to bed. That sort of thing starts happening. And I think the same thing starts happening elsewhere too. I mean, it's not just those two areas, but any two areas are going to have an impact on one another. So we should just keep that in mind. And maybe that's a third question that we could ask in this series is, how does my level of fulfillment in this area impact my level of fulfillment in each of the other areas? Those are important questions, and I'll type that one in too.
Yeah, impact of one area on another. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely right. And you hit upon a great example there. And so so what else? So let's look about like how these things manifest, right? So what is physical? Well, that one's pretty obvious. It is and it isn't, right? But it permeates most all of our life. It's how is this physical body doing? Am I keeping it fit? Am I like eating well? Am I healthy? Am I sick? What am I doing to get better if I'm sick? But then the mental and emotional stuff gets a little fuzzy, right? And then, because it's not something I can touch and go to the gym and push weights on. But my mental state of mind has to do with the thoughts I'm thinking, and the information I'm taking into my brain, and the information that processes in there, and the information that comes out. You can kind of start to, kind of say, okay, well, that's my mental aspect. And Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits, talks about sharpening your saw, meaning do something every day to learn something, or to make help your brain be better. So
I think we talked 2 or 3 weeks ago about being aware of the thoughts that we have, and one of the ways that we can do that, one of the ways that I do it anyway, and I'm sure other people could do this too, is through this thing that people call meditation. Mm-hmm. And meditation doesn't mean that you have to sit still and put your hands in a special position and put your say namaste and om and all that. Meditation to me means nothing more than being fully present in this moment. Not thinking about the future, not thinking about the past. And one way that works is to sit still and just breathe and just pay attention to your breathing. That's one way you can do it. And when I do it that way, what's interesting to me is I'm noticing the thoughts that come up. And I treat them like they're almost like clouds out in the sky, and I think, oh, look at that, there's a cloud that looks like a rabbit. So I'm thinking about a rabbit over there, Thank you for that thought, and just let it go. And what I also do is, if it's a really persistent thought, something that just doesn't want to go, I keep my little notebook beside me and I write it down. And what I find by writing it down is that my ego mind or whatever says, okay, now you've paid attention to me, I can let it go. And so those two pieces alone can help to reduce the intensity of thoughts, and they can also help you kind of scrub your thoughts a bit so that you're not dwelling on things that are of a negative nature to yourself.
You just covered everything that we're talking about today. And what I mean by that is, we're talking about the physical, the mental, the emotional, and spiritual. The mental, as we were saying, are the thoughts we're having. The emotional are the feelings we're having. And whether they're good feelings or bad feelings, whether they're happy, I'm helpful, or I'm getting negative and angry and all that stuff. And the spiritual is getting just in the moment, understanding the truth of who you are, that you're spirit first. You're a spiritual being having this human experience of the physical, mental, and emotional, but that spirit is your core. That's your essence. That's at the core of who you are.
Absolutely.
And we want to talk about what you do during your day to pay attention to each of these four areas. There's different things, right? We can go to the gym for the physical. We can read books for the mental. We can listen to Life Matters TV for the emotional. And what can we do for the spiritual? Meditating is the key. But if you think about meditation for a moment, what else is that doing? It's relaxing your physical. It's calming your mental. It's balancing your emotions. And it's helping you connect with the spiritual, which is why this aspect of meditating is becoming so popular and so much talk about it, is because it has benefits 360 all the way around the circle there. It helps in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's another aspect to the spiritual that I just wanted to mention. I think that you're absolutely right that the spiritual is the essence of who we really are. That's, you know, we think we are our body, we think we are our thoughts, we think we are the teacher, the principal, the construction guy outside, your whatever. We think we are the roles we play, and in fact, those are just things we do because of who we are, you know? And who we are is, as you say, this magnificent, amazing, divine, spiritual being of light and love that just happens to be having a human experience. And it's the spiritual part of us that has a complete vision for our life. It's that part of ourselves that knows exactly why we're here, who we are, all the rest of it. So if you ever have a question, guess what? The only place to go is in here, because that's where the answer is. Now, somebody else might be able to help you find that answer, but no one else can tell you the answer. Keep that in mind.
Let's stay in that spirit space for a moment, because this is the place where I'm sure, you know, the piece of the pie is the thinnest for a lot of people. So let's focus on it. That knowing that that's who you are, and that your answers are there. What you need to do, as David said very clearly, to get to the answers is to go inside and ask the questions and go inside and hear the answers. The thing is, in order to hear the answers, we've got to be kind of still. We've got to be quiet. You know, you can get good at this and maybe go, you know, people who've run and jog, you know, they have this euphoric feelings. But to sit, you know, calm the body, calm the mind, calm the emotions, come into the present moment, and ask your questions. And that's, your spirit does know. Your spirit, I kind of call it sometimes your commander, your captain, to, you know, or your pilot. It, as David said, it knows your path. It knows your, you know, where you're supposed to be going. It knows. It's your sense of knowing. It's your intuition, we call it, our sixth sense. It's all kind of hums around getting down and listening to yourself with a capital S.
Yeah, and part of the reason that there are so many words to describe this, I think, is because it's indescribable. There really are no words, and we're just doing our best with language to try and point people in the right direction. But ultimately, it really boils down to a personal, internal, spiritual experience, if you like. And it's something that, you know, I didn't really understand it for a long time, but then one day it happened, and I meant, wow, that's what all these guys are talking about. And so, as Tommy says, listening, I think, is a powerful, powerful phrase. But you're not listening with your ears. You're kind of listening with the essence. You're listening with an inner tuning. Tommy calls it the commander. I call it the inner authority. And so, you know, trust that part of yourself, because that part of yourself is connected to the source of all that is. And you have access to every piece of information anywhere in the universe. All you got to do is ask the right question, and it will come to you. It's that simple.
And David, I'm going to put this out there, because I'm going to say ultimately what we're doing here on Life Matters TV is talking about things that get in the way of hearing yourself.
Yeah, that's great.
We talk about things that, you know, the mental chatter that cause the mental noise that prevent us from hearing ourselves. We talk about the emotional stuff, and a lot of times those two things are tied together. So we talk about, you know, a concept like judgment or things like that, and it's both thoughts and emotions that kind of gel together. cloud our minds, to cloud our heads, that makes so much noise that we can't hear ourselves.
Yeah.
And so just about everything we do, if I want to think of it this way, is to help people get to that place where they can hear themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Tommy, I had this crazy idea. Do you remember as a kid there was a TV show called, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called, but it was something that, I remember there was a magic mirror on the show. And the host of the show would actually look through the magic mirror and say, oh, look at that, I can see. And I'm going to do that today because I want to welcome all our attendees. So I'm looking through my magic mirror now, and oh, look at that, I can see Beth. Hi, Beth, welcome. And then I see Denise is here as well. Welcome, Denise. And Jules and Maria. Oh, it's just so exciting to have you both here. And I see Washington is here too. I'm telling you, Tommy, we are loaded with great people here. I am so excited. Thank you all for joining us.
Beautiful, David, because that's the other thing we do here too. And in the world of transparency, and trust and honesty and everything else that we walk and say we're doing, that's the way we speak to each other. The way you and I have conversation, David, is at a soul level, is at a spirit level. We kind of talk spirit to spirit, and that's the way we're talking to everyone out there right now. That's how we, that's again, just to prove that part of you exists. That part of you that knows truth, that part of you that hears things that we say and say, whoa, that helps. We're not telling you anything new, right? We're just reminding you. We're kind of clearing away some of the clutter and helping us remember. Because what we started the show by saying is 99% of this planet that we're in and on and living in, 99% of this human race is all about the material. A little bit about the mental, but when it comes to emotional, very little knowledge. And when it comes to spiritual, not enough attention and focus. So we need that every day, right? We wake up, we go to work, we watch the news, we do whatever we do. 99% of the stuff we're getting bombarded with and taking in, whether it's Facebook, the internet, driving down the street, is all focused on our physical and our mental. And we need to, you absolutely have to make time for yourself. And this is what it's about. Make time for your emotional stability, make time for your spiritual life. And eventually you can kind of flip what we've been taught. We've been conditioned to focus on the physical first, mental second, blah, 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 blah. You're going to flip that around. And I guarantee you, if you focus on your spirit first, even if it's 30 minutes a day, your life is going to shift. That's where the stuff starts happening, where you start feeling better, like, oh my gosh. Like you said, you just now I know what these guys are talking about. You get it.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think on the flip side of that, a question that people might not really be thinking about, but I'd like to just bring to their awareness is, what does it cost you not to make yourself a whole person? What are you giving up if you don't do that? We talk about the spiritual part of you being this beautiful, magnificent, divine being of light and love, but what if you're not able to experience that because you're so busy, caught up in the mental, or not working on, allowing your emotions to pass through you in a good way, or you're not dealing with the physical? Then all of that stuff just doesn't make any difference because you're not giving yourself permission. You're not allowing yourself to have the experience. That's an expensive price to pay, and you may not even know you're paying it. That's the key.
Yeah, because basically we're born into this race, right? We're born into this human race without any say. Here we are, and we're born into a society that is materialistic heavy. It's 99%, flipped the way from where it can be. So, yeah, it's just, and so of course you don't see it, we don't recognize it until sometimes something pops your attention up, whether it's reading a book or hearing somebody say something, and now you're plugging in and watching Life Matters TV because you realize that this is an important aspect of your life, and slowly that dial will start to turn, and the ship will start to right itself. Yeah. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of forces that want to keep that ship capsized, want to keep it upside down. So it takes practice, it takes diligence, it takes daily attention. And David and I are going to talk in a few weeks about affirmations, because we need that daily to kind of keep us the ship righted.
Yeah, and I was going to just say that there's a positive aspect to this too that you don't necessarily see right away. Just because I do this work on myself doesn't necessarily mean that the circumstances in my life change. The circumstances might stay the same. They might change for sure, because I may have some impact on some of those, but they may not change at all. But what will change is me and the way I respond to those things that are happening in the world. And that is probably the most important piece, because if I respond with love, if I come from a place of love and respond with love no matter what's happening to me, that love is contributing to this overall situation outside of me and hopefully healing it. That's really important. Whereas if I allow my anger to come out and attack at stuff, and I come from a place of fear, then I'm just feeding a monster. It's like putting gasoline on a fire to try to put it out. It doesn't work. So these are really important pieces that we're talking about here, and I think Life Matters 360 is probably one of the most important topics we've brought up yet. But that's my position.
Yeah, I feel it, and I feel the truth in everything we're saying, and I know everyone who's listening is feeling the truth too, because we're just speaking truth.
Yeah.
And that inner sage in you, that commander, that captain, that wise being inside you is hearing the same truth. So you know it's resonating, you know it's true, and it's already helping make sure that ship stays upright.
Yeah.
I want to give a little tactical thing of something I did in my life. So I'm as many of you know, or as mentioned before, I've been a project manager for a long time, meaning it means I have to control ridiculous things like time. I have to control scope. I have to control what happens. I have to control money. And that's my life. So in doing that, I would have to-do lists. Every day I have a task list that I do, and I used to write everything. Oh, what do I have to do at work? Bum 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 bum. And then what do I have to do for myself? Bum bum. What do I have to do? Bum bum. And you can hear, the to-do list, the daily to-do list, because that's kind of what we're talking about, is setting our priorities in life. And one day, I don't know what I was reading, and I realized that my priorities were capsized. My priorities were upside down. And what I've since done is now I still make my list, but guess what gets the A priorities? There's A priorities, B priorities, C priorities, and D priorities. My A priorities is my spiritual self, my emotional self, my mental self, to read a quote for the day, to at least make the practice of meditating for at least 15 minutes, even if it's while I'm doing something else, bring myself into the moment. Those became my A priority tasks. My B priority tasks became the people around me. How to like this Life Matters TV is on my list right here, and it's a B priority task. Take care of my spirit first, and then reach out. How can I help other people? My C priority tasks are things I need to do, like to get my eyes checked, or to go, see the doctor, or whatever. And my D priority tasks now are my work things, what I have to do during my work day. All right, and you can kind of feel how that rights the ship, and that's that's a thing I actually do every day to make sure I'm focusing my priorities where they do the best good.
That's great, Tommy. So here's what we want you to do, folks. Draw one of those little pieces of circle. Divide it into 4 equal parts. Label it with the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, and just ask yourself those 3 questions that I posted in the chat box. How much satisfaction, fulfillment am I getting in each area? How is my level of satisfaction contributing to the way I show up in the world? And how does my level of fulfillment in one particular area affect my level of fulfillment in the other 3 areas? Then, as you've done that, now you can look and say, what can I do to improve my level of fulfillment in any one of these areas, and which one do I want to tackle first? Hint, hint, it's the spiritual. If you do that, I think you will find that your week will start to improve immediately, and not only that, but subsequent weeks as well, especially if you keep doing this as a practice the way Tommy described. So that's all we have for today, but Tommy, I know we got a great topic next week. You want to tell the folks what that's about?
Yeah, juicy topic coming up next week called Ceasefire of the Sexes. David and I are going to be joined by two lovely women who have been on the show before, and we're just going to talk about the relationship, like David mentioned earlier, the yin and the yang inside ourselves. We're going to talk about some of the conflicts that human males and females seem to have, and why we have them, and just kind of shoot holes in them and get rid of the silliness. So, David, I'm sure there's a more elegant way to express that. Why don't you explain what we're going to be doing?
A more elegant way? Your way is perfectly elegant, Tommy. It doesn't. To me, it's about. I think that men have judgments about women, and I think women have judgments about men. And I think we're going to have some fun just exposing those judgments and seeing if there's any truth at all to any of them. I think you're going to be in for a big surprise. I think it's going to be fun. And we've got Kristen Richardson and Audra Irwin joining us, and they are two amazing, powerful women, so they're not going to take any crap from either of us. It's going to be a blast. So I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.